Hey there, everyone. Welcome to our East Bay Comps and Coffee Live. Welcome everyone. So we like to do, twice a month at least, keeping our clients posted on what's going on with the market. And we have a full 6 month. This will be a little longer than some other reports, but the first 6 months of the year, and then a little bit about where the market's headed. So we've got some good data to share. So I am Lisa Doyle. I work with the Doyle Team here in the East Bay.
Mm-hmm. I'm Diana Carcamo, also realtor, East Bay.
TJ Smith. I'm also a realtor here with the Doyle Team in the East Bay.
And my name is Ryan Day. I am a realtor with Doyle Team too in East Bay.
Awesome. So thank you so much for joining us, guys. And feel free to jump in with questions if you have any. We're here to answer. We're going to fill you guys in on some data. So first of all, we'll get right into it. I'm going to share an overview of the East Bay right now, kind of a comparison from this year to last year. And we didn't really take data from 2020 for the whole year. That was a little unfair because we were shut down for a few months. But just some statistics on the first part of the year, and then some data on where we are right now. It'll give you guys a little sense of where we are. We would be optimistic about today's market, and yet we're starting to see a little bit of what we might say normalizing. The data supports that actually locally and across the country. So our East Bay, we always look at our East Bay as Livermore. So it's the 580 all the way down Pleasanton, the 680, which is Danville, San Ramon, Alamo, the La Miranda area, and then all the way down to Clayton. So it's a pretty broad area. And then we also work in the East County area, which is Antioch, Pittsburgh, and that area. But that data is not included in this. This is more of the Central County East Bay. So a couple things I want to share. If we were to compare back to 2019, 2020 wasn't fair, you guys, because we were, shut down for part of the year. But 2019 was a much softer real estate environment, partly because interest rates went up. But it's interesting. So back in 2019, in that first part of the year between January and July, there were 1,265 active listings on the market on average, and only 768 that were pending at one time. So a much, like the supply and demand was kind of shifted from what I'm going to show you now, which is today's market. More active than pending. Today, we have right now in that entire area, 792 active listings, and there's 1,172 pending.
Jeez,
So
totally reversed.
Yeah, we're still a very strong seller's market, and yet there's a little bit more data I'll share on the overview, and then we're going to walk you guys through some slides. So one thing that's interesting, I thought, the average market time for the first part of the year. So if you look at January through March, average market time was only 8 days. So the first quarter of the year, very, very heated, right? We saw that. All of us were like seeing that spike and crazy 25 or 30 offers. We all experienced that, right?
Yeah.
So between April and today, average market time, 18 days. Not a huge difference, right? But one thing that I thought was pretty curious, I looked at everything that's active right now. The average has been on the market for 20 days or longer. And some, like 20 days and they haven't seen offers yet. So we're just seeing a little bit of a normalizing, right? You can tell by how many pending, still healthy, just a little bit more normal. And then the last data point before we jump into some slides I want to share with you guys. So in 2020, the first part of the year from January to July, homes over 2 million. In our East Bay, there were 273. So not a lot of over 2 million sales, right? Right now in 2021, this has been the biggest spike in our demand in our market. In the first part of 2021 to July 1st, 863.
Wow.
Over
great.
2 million. So 273 last year, 863 over 2 million. So that market has seen a big increase, which we've all seen.
Yeah, for sure.
Demand, yeah. So crazy. So we'll jump right into some slides. And of course, you guys, anyone that has questions, jump in. A lot of people watch this update after, once it's recorded. It'll be live on our Facebook now and Instagram, but it'll be later. So if you guys have questions, always message us. But if you have questions now, jump in as well. I'm going to keep an eye on my Facebook page in case anyone has a question. So let's get to it. And one of the things that we all want to make sure that everyone understands right now is the market is optimistic and yet showing some signs of just some stabilizing, right? Wouldn't you guys say that's kind of what we're starting to feel? All of our
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, we've all been this week, even last week or two, showing homes where maybe there weren't already offers on these properties, right?
Yeah, that's been completely unusual for this year.
Yeah.
I would say maybe longer days on market, less offers that the buyers are competing against.
Yeah. And the biggest benefit of this data for our home sellers is to be a little bit more patient. The prices are still very strong. It just might take a little bit longer because buyers are watching things a little bit more. They've got a little bit more to choose from, and buyers to understand, of course, that, and we're going to show you some data on this. Market's still healthy and things are looking good moving forward. So here's our first slide. We'll jump right in. So the percentage of buyers who say right now is a good time to buy. So earlier, last year, of course, a significant portion of buyers felt like it was a good time to buy. And that's been shrinking a little bit, primarily because of just prices. Some buyers have been priced out of the market. Some of them feel like, that the market has kind of surpassed them. So some of them have maybe jumped out of the market because of that. And maybe those buyers might come back in once inventory is increasing a little bit. So this is just a little bit of where buyers are coming from, which makes sense.
On the next one here.
Yeah, so this one talks about buyer fatigue. Like Lisa mentioned, buyers are getting priced out, outbid. So this one is showing the reason is because, record price appreciation, extremely low inventory, which, we're seeing that still now today, inventory is still super low. And then record high percentage sales over the list price. So that's what's happening. Buyers are having to, pay over asking price, and record low days on market. They were going just so quickly, just like you mentioned, even before going on market, homes were being sold.
Yeah.
And historically low mortgage rates. So still, mortgage rates are still in that, mid 2s to mid 3s, depending on, your situation and credit score.
Yeah. How good their credit is, and maybe how much asset they have in the bank. Even back in 2019, we saw rates jump up to 5%. So that was the biggest indicator of, or one of the causes of a more heated market for sure. Yeah. I know. I think, Diana, you had the lowest. You had someone get under 2.5%.
Recently I have a buyer. He was at 2.5.
Yeah. Very good.
That's great.
Yeah.
So buyer talking points. So right now, buyers are kind of expecting a turn in the coming months. Typically, like towards the end of the summer, there tends to be a little bit of a turn, which we're already sort of seeing right now. And not necessarily for a negative, but more just a normalization. The market is still super competitive, more so than it has been in the past couple of years by a lot. And summer is when serious buyers commit. So when you get to the end of summer and there's buyers still looking, they're looking to get a house, before the school season or before the next school year starts. So that's when you're going to see a lot of super serious buyers kind of out making offers, because they don't want to get left behind. They don't want to be shopping when it's, fall, winter time.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is kind of like, a lot of the buyers are, which we've all had this conversation. I had 2 conversations in the last couple of days with buyers who said, hey, I think I'm going to wait until the end of the year because I think the market's going to go down. Honestly, so far from what we've seen, we're seeing a very stable, strong, and again, the data, we're going to show you guys some additional data that will support that we're not likely to see a big reduction in pricing. What they might be seeing at that point is maybe higher interest rates, which, makes it more expensive to buy. So yeah, it's a good one. Mm-hmm.
And here we have a quote from George Ratu from Realtor.com. So George says, the improvement we saw in new listings growth from May to June shows sellers are entering the market historically later in the season, which could mean we'll see home buying continue into the fall as buyers jump at new opportunities. So piggybacking on what TJ just said, we're seeing that a lot of buyers, they may be waiting or thinking of waiting until the fall or the winter. Well, that's going to cause more demand even in the less busier seasons historically. So this busy market could push over until even early 2022 in the winter as well.
Yeah. And one thing that we've also seen, so, even though we were selling homes every day during COVID with proper protocol, right, keeping everyone safe, buyers and sellers, there was still a big chunk of the seller market that they wanted to not put themselves through that. They wanted to wait. Yep. So I think that is one of the biggest reasons why we'll see inventory going up with sellers who now are no longer afraid. They're willing to jump in and sell their homes as COVID is kind of working its way through. Yeah. So that may be one reason why we see an increase in inventory.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Exactly. So this is a good one to look at. So months inventory of home sales. So if you look at this graph, the upper part, the red part, is when we see inventory reach the 12-month, 11-month, 10-month window versus where we are today. And what this graph means is when it says on the left side, 7.3, 8.2, what that means is if there were no other listings that came on the market at this one moment, everything that's on the market today would take this number of months to sell. So right now we're in like a 1.5 month inventory, which is low, right? That's why we've been such a strong seller's market. Our inventory and our demand have been, colliding. So what's interesting about this is even a 5-month inventory of homes, which is significantly more than we have today, is still considered a seller's market. So buyers need to be aware, just because there's a few more choices doesn't mean that we're shifting and they can get a, like what you might call a hot deal. Market's still strong, and and like we talked about in our little update in the very beginning, inventory today is still less than pending than what's pending. So
it's still super healthy.
Yeah, so we're down at the very bottom numbers still.
So this one talks about or shows the average amount of equity in the past year, just how much it's grown. So you can see just, the average amount of equity right now in homes, 33,400.
And
then,
sorry,
go ahead. Oh no, I was going to say, and all of it says here 38.2 of all homes are actually owned free and clear. So that's a pretty high number.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like, this is a national statistic. So our area, of course, the increase has been much greater in 1 year. But what's crazy, this is why people say that, well, is this another bubble like 2008? Back in 2008, they said statistically about 5% of Americans owned their homes free and clear. And today it's almost 40%. Such a big difference. Yeah, people are not
eight times the amount.
People are not using their homes as ATMs today like they did back then.
Yeah, and then this 19.6% increase in equity. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's not what we normally we see, single digit numbers. This is double digit numbers.
Yeah.
So here's a couple of quotes for some economists at First American Title. It looks like existing inventory is starting to inch up, which is good news for a housing market parched for more supply. So there's a little bit more inventory starting to come into the market, which allows for a little bit more opportunity for the buyers that have been just kind of struggling and getting beat up the past couple months. Another one from House, which is a platform that is a real estate platform. We're seeing another significant week over week gain in inventory. Great news for buyers. So again, they're kind of across the board seeing that supply is kind of improving, and it's just providing a little bit more opportunity for the buyers that have been struggling a lot. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's just like that's normal this time of year, and for all the reasons why we've been talking, that we're likely to see more choices, which is good for buyers. Anyone who's gotten beat up in the last few months, come back,
Just hang in there. Give it a couple more weeks.
Yeah.
So we talked about some buyer talking points, and this is important for anybody thinking about selling or in the future having ideas of selling. Don't be too unrealistic with what you're trying to expect now that the market is somewhat stabilizing, like Lisa said. We may not be seeing in our area, some homes are seeing $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 over the asking price. Be a little more realistic. The listing prices are going to start creeping up, and we'll show you here in a little bit that data. But be more realistic. Don't be too unrealistic. Wait, and you'll miss out on an extremely attractive market. So as we said before, the serious buyers are in the summer. They want to be in their homes before school, so you could miss out on a great serious buyer pool. And 3, it's never been a better time to sell because of low interest rates. There's a lot of buyers out there, and then the lack of inventory that TJ just examined. We don't have any homes for sale, so it's a great time to be a seller. And 4th, the price appreciation will moderate as rates and inventory raise later this year. So, you're not going to see the 14% appreciation we saw last year. You may see, and we'll show some data here, about 3 to 5% in most areas.
Yeah, exactly. So the forecast, that's always everyone's big question is where are we headed? And we have absolutely no crystal ball. You know, even the smartest economist doesn't have a crystal ball, but we do have something that we can share that might give us some indications. So this is a good one because interest rates, it's always supply and demand, and interest rates that cause the market to be more heated and or become more normal. So everyone knows that interest rates are likely to start creeping up a bit. And this is showing from next year, like 1 year from now, they're not projecting that we're going to rise dramatically. But like Diana said, she had a client that was able to get in under, right around the 2.5%. We're likely to be up maybe into 3.5-ish by sometime next year. So, we may even see that.
Really low.
Sorry, go ahead, Diana.
Oh, I was just commenting. That's still really low.
Yeah.
Still really low. I mean, gosh, I have to say, this was like a million years ago because I am the oldest person in the room. When I bought my first house, the interest rates were like 16% coming down off of 18% back in the day when rates were so high. So I bought my first home at 9%. We thought that was like awesome, single digit. Woo. So this is so much better. But just keep in mind, we may see rates jump up like this sometime later this year, depending on how inflation goes. So, just be mindful.
So this one talks about forbearances. When, in 2020, a lot of people were, asking for forbearances for, with their lenders. So you can see how high it was back then, back in May, June, during the summer, September. So now we're seeing that it's, decreasing. So there's not as many, people are getting back to work, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, super good. I know some people feel like, hey, and we're going to show you some additional data to support the fact that we are not likely to see what we saw back in 2008. But the fact that people's equities have jumped so much, even some of these people that are in that forbearance situation still today, most people have equity. If they really needed to move to change their life, they could sell their homes and they still would have money in their pocket. They're not likely to have a foreclosure issue or, that kind of thing. Yeah.
This is a quote from the Atlantic, and what they said is the only places where McBride told me he could envision a bubble bursting are locations where urban residents bought second homes in a panic, only to have the urban core quickly get vaccinated and normalized in 2021. We might see some price declines in the second home areas, like small towns in New England and other beach towns on the East Coast. But even there, we might just see a shift where more people decide that they like owning second homes. So this doesn't apply too much for this area, but a lot of people bought second homes and kind of moved out of the area during the pandemic. So there might be some declines in those areas where the people move to when they start to move back. But that, again, people didn't really buy second homes here in the Bay Area.
Yeah, I had a few that bought second homes in the Lake Tahoe area because it was close enough where they could still be back and forth. But they spent a lot of time there because they wanted to have something to do during COVID. They didn't want to be locked in at home,
right?
Stuck at home here. Although it's a beautiful place to be stuck at home
Yeah.
still.
Both places are super nice.
Yeah, Danville definitely isn't a bad place, but that's interesting.
Yeah. And here we have the home sales forecast to increase nicely in 2021 and do well in 22. So this is a projection. These are projections from major mortgage companies and whatnot. So you're also seeing here projections from Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. You're seeing a 6.7 to 7% increase in 2021 in total, and then 2022 somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 7.5% again. So not 14% that we saw last year, crazy appreciation nationwide, but still very healthy. That's a very healthy increase still year over year.
Yeah. I mean, historically, single digits. I think there's another data point that we're going to share that actually statistics have been like 3 to 5% historically over the years. And we've been, like you said, geez, when you get close to 15 to 20% increase in 1 year, that's just a little, obviously unheard of in historic times.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
we had pockets in San Ramon where it was appreciating more than 20%, which is crazy.
Yeah, crazy. Yeah. So this is an interesting, we've been talking about this. Anytime you start to see inflation, the Federal Reserve, when they make, what a lot of people don't realize, when the Federal Reserve makes changes in interest rates, a lot of people stand by their TV and listen to what the Fed has to say. That doesn't necessarily impact mortgage rates right away. The Federal Reserve controls the short-term rates, which is like credit cards and that, but it still influences our mortgage world, right? The Fed still influences. So we've had a little bit of inflation going on here. So this is JP Morgan's, what they're saying is home buyers interest rates are still likely to be historically low, although they are definitely inching up. We're seeing housing prices have spiked so much during this last 6 to 9 months. They don't expect them to fall, anytime in the near future. And they believe that they're more likely to keep rising. So we're likely to keep, like what you just shared, Ryan, is that kind of slow, steady. If you're looking for, to purchase a new home, conditions may be a little better than 12 months. So
Yeah.
they're just, they're just maybe seeing that we're likely to continue to see that. And another quote about our future interest rates changing. Yeah. So
There's a little slide saying headlines do more than clarify, they actually terrify in some circumstances, get viewers to click on their article or watch the news because there's some major headline, but really it's just that's what it is, a headline. There's no true meaning behind some headlines, and they're falsifying things.
Well, and that's part of the reason why we like to share this data, because news, no offense to news, they do make more money when they have some shocking, scary information to share. So they might take the data and they might only give you one piece of it that sounds more scary, but be aware of that.
So this slide talks about home equity cash out. So as you can see, back in that 05 to 07, during that crisis, a lot of people were taking money out. And then you can see now that it has dramatically decreased.
Yeah, exactly. And even though in the last couple of years, people have now taken some of their money out of their homes, it's nothing like we were back in the financial crisis.
Yeah.
We just want people to know that.
Yeah, back then people were using their house as ATM, so they were buying second homes, buying just all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and they were even buying homes. I had even heard of a few times where back in that time during that 04 and 05, where a buyer would actually buy a house and do 105% financing. Wow. So they would get money back to pay closing costs, and they actually owed more at the time that they closed their escrow than what the house was worth. So that was
scary.
Those were not good practices for sure.
So here's another quote from Bill McBride. For Q1 of 2021, the net equity extraction was $41 billion, or 0.8% of disposable personal income. This is nothing like the amount of equity extraction during the housing bubble as a percent of disposable personal income. So 0.8% is a very, very small amount compared to what compared to what Diana just talked about. It used to be much, much higher than that.
Yeah, and the news, that was one of the reasons why we wanted to share you that slide about news scaring you. Like the headline on the news might be, Americans have taken $41 billion out of their homes. And that sounds like a lot, but compared to previous times, it's very much, much smaller. So,
right.
Yeah, we just saw the other slide show the total equity amounting to almost 1.9 trillion. Yeah. So compared to, people taking 41 billion out, that's minuscule.
Small in the big scheme of things.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And another quote here from the State of the Nation's Housing. These outside increases have raised concerns that a home price bubble is emerging. However, conditions today are quite different than in the early 2000s, like we just talked about, particularly in terms of credit availability. The current climb in the house prices instead reflects strong demand amid tight supply, helped along by record low interest rates. So not only do you have record low interest rates driving demand from buyers, but you're also seeing no homes available for those buyers to buy. So this price justification of appreciation is totally justified. That's why we're seeing the big jump in prices.
Yeah. Well, and like in our area, and this is a conversation we've all had with clients too. In our area, we've been so much lower priced than the South Bay always, right? The East Bay people come here because we have great schools and affordability. You get so much more home and newer. that area has still, that this is likely why our area will likely continue to see appreciation, because you still get so much more home here than you do in the South Bay. We haven't caught up yet. So,
Totally.
we're still likely to see much more buyer demand still coming to our East Bay, regardless of what happens with the rest of the country. So, yeah. And so what's at stake? This is a good one to think about, buyers and sellers, what are we risking? So forecasting for appreciation, this is a good one. This is kind of back to that conversation, 2021. And this is 8.6 is a national statistic. The Bay Area, like Ryan said, was more like 20% and higher than that in some areas. And so we've had, significant rise. But this is forecasting that the whole country is likely to get back to historic norms. But if you're a buyer and you buy a home now, and we see an appreciation of, 5% over the next 10 years, you still have so much a gain in wealth than you would if you didn't own a home. So home ownership will always be a strategic part of someone's wealth plan. Even though we have cycles in the market over time, you're always going to see an over time increase in your wealth because you own a home. So
yeah, and I believe what you said, a plan. If a buyer has a plan, and they say they want to buy a home and only stay in there for 2 to 5 years, then maybe you're going to be not worried about, more vigilant in looking at these appreciation numbers. But if you're buying your forever home for 20 plus years, you're not worried about the short-term fluctuations from 8 to 5%, which is still great in appreciation.
Yeah, even if you plan to only stay in a house 10 years, it's still, it's still a huge benefit of that. So
yeah, those are our slides.
Awesome. And I know you guys have a little bit of data to share. We looked at an overview first, and then I think you guys are going to share some data on some specific areas.
Yeah, I wanted to just share some data on Danville. So I was just looking at numbers, kind of summarizing what we just finished talking about the demand of, buyers kind of settling. So back in the first part of the year, so February, March, in Danville, the average median price, the list price was at 1.6. And just looking back, last 30 days, the median price is 2.1. So you can see that difference in how much that list price has gone up.
Yep. And hence that whole much more of the high end selling that gives more of a median.
Yeah.
But so buyers, don't be afraid. There's houses for sale less than the 2.1. But that's a big rise in our average. Awesome. Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. So for San Ramon, a little bit different statistic, but right now there's currently over 35 houses on the market that are over 2 million sales. So there's been so far this year over 35 sales over 2 million in San Ramon, and 4 of those have been over 3 million. And if you know San Ramon, that's not really a San Ramon price. Yeah. Typically, we are seeing like 1.3, 1.4 is kind of normal for San Ramon. So now we're seeing all the way up there. And right now there's 68 houses active on the market in San Ramon, and there's over 120. It's like 121 that's pending right now.
Yeah,
so
double.
Crazy, yeah, double.
Normally in San Ramon, we would see 185 houses listed, 200 houses listed. So inventory is still historically low. Yeah.
68 is nothing.
Crazy.
Yeah. Well, the same thing in Walnut Creek, very low housing inventory still, just like Sereno and Danville. Interestingly enough, we didn't see too much of a difference between list price versus the beginning of the year and where we are today. We're hovering right around average list price about 1.45 for a Walnut Creek single family detached, so no condos or townhomes. But the sold price has actually increased to about $40,000 since the beginning of this year. So we're seeing prices still appreciate in Walnut Creek, and right now that average sold price is about 1.54 million.
Yeah, it's interesting. And of course, if anyone has any questions about any of the other cities or specifics about your homes, let us know. We're always happy to help you. And what's interesting too is one of the things that the sellers, as in the beginning of 2021, there were neighborhoods where houses were asking prices might have been 1.3, and then the houses were selling for 1.7. So that, that's such a huge jump because of the demand. And then as the months have progressed this year, the asking prices have slowly been rising up to the level of the sold prices, if that makes sense. So people that are now asking houses where they would have asked 1.3, now they're asking 1.7 instead. So you're not seeing that significant jump over. You know,
Yeah.
the asking prices have now started to equal maybe what the values actually have become. And the one example I wanted to share, this is something for sellers to be mindful. You know, there's no exact science to a strategy, but there was a house in the neighborhood where we sold a home for 1.750, and the asking price was actually the highest asking price ever. We were at a 1.599, and it jumped over because of demand. Well, another agent brought a house on the market at 1.725. She figured, okay, it's close to the listing that I sold at 1.750. It sat there for about 3 weeks without offers, just purely because she was asking a number that maybe wasn't as like supported by buyers. So she reduced the price to 1.599, and then it jumped right back up again to the 1.725. So just to think about for sellers as you're strategizing on what you should ask for your home. You know, there's no guarantee that it will go over, but it just gives you an idea that if you price it more in the line with what the buyers are perceiving as exciting to them, you'll get a better interest and, you know, likelihood, maybe even a better price in the end. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, so this is cool. So, you know, kind of bottom line, we're expecting the rest of this year to be a good year, maybe not quite as heated. Things are showing signs of just normalizing. You know, if any of you have questions about your specific home or your plans, we're so excited to help you. You know, very honored to help you guys.
Yeah, should be a good rest of the year.
Yeah, so take care, stay well, everyone. And oh my gosh, I have to say, this last couple of weeks out in public, seeing people's faces has been awesome.
Open houses, it's been nice.
Yeah, open houses are back. We get to see smiles again. So, you know,
Yep.
yeah, enjoy the fact that we've gotten a little more back to normal.
Yeah.
Take care,
it's been
guys.
fun.
Stay well.
All right.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye, everybody. See you soon. See you in 2 weeks.